Welcome to Proline. It's Wednesday here in Las Vegas, March 8th, and we're doing the show this week. Dave Cokin is sick. I've been sick for 3 weeks with this, I don't know what you call it, the Vegas crud or whatever it is. Doctors say there's a couple 100,000 people that have this. It's not the flu, and it's not a cold, but boy, I tell you, it knocks the hell out of you. Dave has been doing really well, as have I. I'm on a 24-8 college basketball run, including 2-1 with the games of the year last Saturday, cashing with North Carolina and New Mexico. I also have been 2-0 with my high rollers. That would be Colorado and Notre Dame. We talk about the March Madness, and we all think of it's the NCAA, the CBI, the CIT, the NIT. In reality, there's better opportunities right now with these conference tournaments. We don't know the matchups day to day. So the team wins or loses today, it creates the matchup for tomorrow. And usually they're playing back to back to back to back. Sometimes as many as 4 games in 4 days. Many times it's 3 games in 3 days. So you got to remember these kids are kids, they're college students, 18 to 22 years old. It's been a long time since I've been 18 to 22 years old, but I remember I had an abundance of energy back in those days, and I could go all night and go all day and go all night again, and it was a fun time in life. And those days are gone. The energy disappears as you age, but these kids are excited. The adrenaline's going, and it's really exciting right now. And I'm going to get into some details about that, but there's a poll question every Monday on our social media network. We post a Proline poll question and announce the results right here on the show. This week, we asked, who's going to win the Big East? And this is interesting because it brings up one of the issues I have later on. Villanova, Butler, Creighton, and Seton Hall were the likely choices. The winner, 52% chose Villanova, 25% said Seton Hall, 16 Butler, and 8 Creighton. My discussion point on this, John, Villanova knows that they're going to be in the tournament, and they know they're going to get a #1 seed. So I don't know that Jay Wright, who's the head coach there at Villanova, in case you don't know that, is going to be as excited about pressing the issue here to win this. Now, granted, it's a feather in your cap when you win your own conference tournament. However, there is the issue of trying to save some legs and the energy for this big event. Butler has beaten Villanova twice this year, which is kind of unusual. Butler's style, they're kind of like, Butler is like Villanova Part 2. They play very similar. They don't have the same level of talent, and of course don't have the championship. But a few years ago, Butler was, a Final Four team a couple of times, and they're good. Creighton, of course, has had some injuries, and they've had a little bit of an up and down year, but still very good. Seton Hall has come on strong. I'm not surprised by the answer, but I disagree with it because I think the motivation, even though you may be right statistically and odds-wise, saying 52% are saying Villanova, I think there's a better bet if you're going to bet this tournament, and I would probably bet on Butler to win it because I think they're going to want it more, and I think they'd be willing to put out a little bit more to get there.
Yeah, this Villanova team, 28-3, defending champs, so there is some sense among the public that they're kind of like the Gonzaga of this conference. They're always here, they dominate, and that's not the case. This is a more evenly matched conference, and with this time of the year, I look at 2 things. Number one is defense, and another thing is something that you taught me, and that is who's hot right now, not who was hot a couple months ago. And the team that fits both that criteria would be the one that the public only puts 16% of the vote in, and that's the one you mentioned, Butler, too. Tremendous defensive team, 3rd in the Big East in points allowed. They're also 3rd in scoring, so you got a balanced team. They're playing well, 5-2 run. They beat Villanova twice, as you mentioned, very recently as a +10 dog. So, yeah, I would agree with Butler, too. And Do you know who won the Big East tournament a year ago at this time?
It wasn't. Who was it? Let me think about that a second. Who won the Big East tournament a year ago?
It wasn't
Was it Seton Hall?
Yes, it wasn't the team everybody thinks. Villanova. They played Seton Hall in the title game, and Seton Hall upset them 69-67, and that's common with these tournaments for various reasons, which you mentioned.
Well, yeah, we know that not all the number one seeds are going to win these tournaments because, the other teams are good too. Sometimes they have double revenge. Usually on a neutral court or a semi-neutral court at least. So you get situations where one basket, you take a basket or give the other team a basket, it's a 4-point swing. And then it comes down at the end of the games. We all see how the end of these games are played out. If the team can't hit their foul shots at the end of the game, a lot of things can change right there. So I'm not looking for all the number one seeds to win. I know that's not going to happen. I mean, another one we could talk about would be Kansas. They're a number one seed. They're going to be a number one seed in the tournament. They just played pretty well, very well, at Oklahoma State. I lost that game. That was the only loser I had that day. I think it was 5-1 and lost that one play. But they shot 55% from the field in that game. They're not going to do that all the time. And they're a thin team. When I say thin, they're not deep. They have Frank Mason, who's a lot of people say the best guard in the country. I don't know if that's the case, but he is very, very good. But still, to win the conference tournament, then go to the NC2As as a number one seed, yeah, they get a bye in that situation. But these number ones can go down. So look for value if you're going to play who's going to win the tournament, the conference tournaments, because you're not going to make very much if you pick a Villanova or a Kansas. The odds are stacked against you. You're not getting true value. Look for a few long shots. Put a $10 or $20 bill on it. If you want to ask any questions, wagering questions, go to prolinetv.com. Drop us a question, and we'll answer that question and get right back to you. Plus, if you get on there, you can subscribe, and we'll get you 7 days of plays for free. Now, you can also go to Proline TV and get a week of service for free on me. Plus, go to jimfeist.com for free stats, articles, videos, and my free fast facts and plays from the nation's top handicappers, including Dave Cokin, who is out sick today. Talk about wagering tips. Did a team play a tough schedule? Look back at some of the key conference games they played early in non-conference action that would feature marquee matchups and see how they did there. Did they play a tough defense or give up defensively, knowing they were supposed to lose? A lot of times teams will play very good until they know they can't win and then just chuck it and just give up. And those kind of teams are not easy to bet on because you're not going to get true value. How teams played in those step-up games can give you a clue in March as to the toughness. I'll give you an example. Last night we had Gonzaga last night as one of our best plays, and they played St. Mary's. The marketplace made ridiculous moves on that game, drove the game all the way down to 4. Gonzaga is way better than St. Mary's. Why? They have pretty good athletes. They're dominant inside. And they have handled St. Mary's consistently over the years. Yeah, they were up, Gonzaga was up 21-22 at the half. St. Mary's came back, and this is a flaw that I see in Gonzaga, and I don't like this. They came back in the second half, drove that all the way down to 5 or 7 points. Gonzaga just, they chucked it in the second half, and then, of course, they turned it around and pulled away. That kind of intensity by Gonzaga is not going to work for them when they go up against some really good teams. Teams that know how to play a full 40 minutes. I'm going to say it right here. I know Gonzaga might get a number one seed. They are not tournament ready. And I know they have played good teams throughout the year. In the beginning of the year, they played some tough clubs. But because they play a soft schedule all year long, from that point on in conference tournament, the only decent team they really play is St. Mary's. I'm not going to knock them for the one game they lost to BYU. They just had a flat night. But they're not tournament ready. They don't know how to play 40 minutes against a real good quality team that's not going to give up. They have the talent. I'm not so sure that they have the coaching, because even the players toughen up when they play a tough schedule, and the coaches toughen up when they have to coach against a tough schedule. I don't think Mark Pugh or this Gonzaga team is ready to go very far in the tournament. They're going to get upset. Familiarity. John, you want to take this one?
Yeah, that's something I look at, and it's easy too in this conference tournament play because the teams have played each other at least one time and maybe two. And what's important about that is I like to look at totals. So how do these teams play? If you get an up-tempo team facing a team that likes to slow the pace down, well, look at those first two games. What did they do? Oftentimes it's split with the home team controlling the pace, but sometimes the slow-paced team will able to slow down an up-tempo team. Not just this season, but in past years too. And that's something that stands out. And you take teams like Duke, North Carolina, and UCLA and Arizona. You know, those teams love to run the court, bomb away from long range, and score plenty of points. You'd think that if they meet in tournament play, it's going to be high-scoring games and over the total. Well, the 4 games that they played each other this season combined 2-2 as far as over and under, and that's common because the odds makers will adjust it to a higher number. Plus, these teams are also, all 4 of them, are very good defensively, and that's something that you'll notice when you look back at the earlier games as far as long-range shooting percentage and field goal shooting defense, not just teams that go up-tempo. So that's something that I get out of looking at this tournament times, Jim.
Excellent point. One of the slowest, the best defensive teams in the country is Virginia. And recently, I think they held North Carolina to 43 points. In a game. So defense matters, and if you don't know how to play against a team that plays defense, you're up the creek. History, a lot of times history doesn't matter in these tournaments because they're not facing teams that they've played before, and home road differential also doesn't matter very much because they're not playing on the other team's court. They're neutral courts, or at least they're supposed to be neutral courts. And this year, interesting enough, you got some tournaments that are in different cities like Brooklyn and Washington, D.C. Conferences have moved their games. This is going to change things a lot. And keep in mind one thing. When a team has a bye, and then they have to play a team that played the night before, in a venue that they never played before, the team that played the night before might have an advantage. Yes, they might be a little tired and the fatigue factor weighs against them, but being that they're only 18 to 22-year-old kids, they got the momentum off the win. They also have the history on that court now. They've played there. The sight lines that they have to shoot and the backdrop and everything else, they know it, and the teams they're playing who sat the day before do not. So that could be an interesting advantage for the teams that you might think might be fatigued. They may not be. So we talked a lot about defense and teams like that, but you look at the defense, the rebounding, the schedule, all the things that you look for, even in football, the strength of schedules and stuff like that, that all matters. And there's some interesting matchups. K-State against Baylor.
Yeah, we got a Big 12 game here as Kansas State playing Baylor from the Sprint Center in Kansas City. And, you like to talk about teams, how are they playing lately? Well, both these teams have been struggling the last month. Baylor at one point was number 1 in the nation, only 5-5 the last 10 games, 4-6 spread run. And Kansas State worse, 4-8 straight up, 4-7 against the spread. As far as tempo is concerned, it's pretty clear what's going to happen in this game. Neither team likes to run. They love to focus on playing great defense. Kansas State on a 4-1 run under the total. They prefer a slower pace. And then Baylor, number 1 in the Big 12 in points allowed, the number 1 in field goal shooting defense, the only team under 40% shooting. When these teams face, the underdog is 18-7-1 against the spread, so I'm going to have to look at a defensive game here. Baylor 9-3 under the total in Big 12 play. And then you got Indiana and Iowa. Talk about a reversal of teams. These teams love to run the court. A lot of young talent, but boy, the defense is a total afterthought between these teams. They played once this season. It was an overtime game, but still it was a shootout, 96-90. Yeah, there's plenty of offensive talent to score points, but I can't imagine these teams making deep runs in the tourney because neither cares much about defense. Indiana number 2 in the conference in scoring, but they're not winning games. 2-8 run, 4-5-1 against the spread. They come in off of a spread win, but they're only 15-35 against the spread in that situation. Iowa's playing better, but you also have 4 freshmen, so this is kind of a learning curve for them. And head-to-head, Indiana just hasn't matched up at all well with Iowa, 7-17 against the spread. So I have to look at an offensive game, Jim, but a lot of points, too, in that one with no defense.
Well, you're right, John. There's some interesting games coming up. Not only today, but we could talk about a little bit major conference stuff that you might want to talk about. The Atlantic 10. I'm seeing some early numbers with Davidson favored over LaSalle. That game's in Pittsburgh, and then Fordham plays George Mason, and Mason is 3. Davidson's 4.5 over LaSalle. Creighton, interesting. This game's in New York. Creighton's 3 over Providence at the moment. Marquette, same stadium, New York, Madison Square Garden. Marquette is 2.5 over Seton Hall. Of course, the Villanova and Butler, their matchups haven't been determined yet. Indiana is 2, the game you just talked about. Indiana is 2 over Iowa at the moment. These lines will move. And Michigan is 6.5 over Illinois. The matchups in the Atlantic Coast Conference, the matchups for North Carolina, Louisville, Florida State, and Notre Dame are not yet determined. However, at the half, we do have Miami of Florida 30. Well, no, this is actually in the second half now with 1 minute gone in the second half. Miami of Florida is 36-31 over Syracuse. And Miami of Florida was a slight favorite going into that game, 1.5 or 2. There's another game here, Western Kentucky, who's a 4 or 5 point favorite in that game. They're in the first half. It's 21-20 San Antonio. And Coastal Carolina is up 36-31 over South Alabama. There's games, this is why I say this is such a great time of year. You got to remember, these games are being played now, and they're going to be played all day long. The odds makers don't know who they're going to match up against in the next game. So there's a lot of opportunities. I will be glued to the screen and to my power ratings all day today and try to get a head start on what happens as these games pop up on the board. I want to take a first shot at getting these numbers because it is about number shopping. Now, Dave has some free plays, and you can get those from our Vegas experts at 888-294-1970. And you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Jim Feist Sports, and get free plays daily by texting GAME, GAME, to 25827.
Enjoy the games, everyone.
Okay. Yep. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back next week. Hopefully Dave is available, and let's have a good run, make some money, build the bankroll. And I'm on a 24-8 run in college basketball, and Dave is on a 16-5-1 exclusive plays. You don't want to miss out to win money.